Hello guys and welcome to my new video. And Blizzard has finally announced Season 4 class balancing changes, and there are more classes getting changed beside the nerfs to Survival Hunt and Destruction Warlock that were announced a while ago. People knew it was coming, so this video is going to predict or take into account these class balancing changes, and I'll try to predict, use a tier list and things like that for a possible new 5-man composition that could be very popular in Season 4, because you have to remember there's a new seasonal affix Shrouded coming out, there's new gear coming or old gear coming with faded raids, and on top of that you have a completely new dungeon rotation coming in the new season. So let's go and have a look at these balancing changes. And Blizzard has finally looked at Mistweaver Monk damage, and they finally buffed. Oh wait, this is PvP. Okay, let's not meme, let's go to the real changes. So right now we're actually seeing this is the real changes for PvE content. So Balanced Druid Starfall damage increased by 15%. Balanced Druids, any buff to Balanced Druid is extremely warranted. They're one of the worst DPS classes in Season 3, especially in Mythic Plus content. I think, again, Starfall damage by 15%, pretty nice, but is that going to be big enough to bring them into like S tier or invite it in 5-man content? Most likely not. If you look at the actual overall damage of Balanced Druids and something like Raid, again, this is Sepulcher, Mythic, 95% percentile. Balanced Druids, they're doing okay, they're not the worst, they're not the best, but if you actually look at the 5-man content, and this is a really nice graph made from 2 weeks of Mythic Plus content, both from Tyrannical and Fortified weeks, and it's based on Warcraft logs, real player information. You can see why certain classes are getting nerfed, and you can see why certain classes should get buffed. Balanced Druid is basically bottom tier DPS in terms of Mythic Plus content. They really need some sort of help. I don't want to over exaggerate too much, but legitimately Holy Priest, if you're doing a really juicy key in Season 3, something like Halls of Atonement, or again Gambit where Destruction Warlocks are getting PI and Destruction Warlock is doing like 40k overall damage, if you attribute the PI or Power Infusion damage to Holy Priest, they're probably quite close to the overall damage of Balanced Druid. Now, this is a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but this is the current state of Balanced Druids. They need a huge buff, and the Starfall buff is not going to be, or probably won't be enough, but any change to Balanced Druid is extremely warranted in Season 4, because their Season 3 performance is extremely lackluster, especially when you look at Mythic Plus content. And now let's go to the juicy bit and the Survival Hunter nerfs. We knew the Survival Hunter nerfs are coming, we just weren't sure how big they're going to be. And the Raptor Strike, Mongoose, Bite, and Kill Command damage increased by 50%. 4 set bonus Wildfire Bomb damage lowered to 20% instead of 30%. And then Wildfire Bomb and any Wildfire Infusion variants of Wildfire Bomb now deal reduced damage when hitting more than 8 targets, so soft cap has been applied to Survival Hunters. If you look at all of these changes, this is basically the same design philosophy that they applied to Destruction Warlock. Hey, we're nerfing your AoE, but we're buffing your single target to compensate for it. And any Survival Hunter looking at these changes, they're probably quite happy. There's been a slap on the wrist for Survival Hunter, but it's quite mild. The soft cap to 8 targets is definitely going to be felt on certain dungeons, especially if you're doing Gambit, because Gambit is coming back in Season 4. So if you're doing the start pulse in Gambit, where you're pulling like 20 plus mobs, yeah, you will feel the nerf to Survival Hunter. But you have to consider the dungeons that are coming in Season 4. Like, for example, dungeons like Junkyard. The meta for Junkyard, or timing high keys in Junkyard, is pulling small and making sure you don't die because you have the zap bot. You don't want anyone to die with that buff. It is a nerf to AoE. It is a soft cap being applied, but I don't think it's going to impact Survival Hunters all that much. I think majority of Survival Hunters looking at this, they're quite happy. Destruction Warlock got a 20 or 30% overall damage nerf because they were just wildly overpowered. And the Survival Hunter got a slap on the wrist, which probably still places them in a pretty high demand unless there's going to be further nerfs. Let's look at more changes. There's been some changes to Arcade Mages, but it's mainly for PvP. It's not even worth talking about. Monk, Windwalker, Spinning Crane Kick, damage reduced by 5%. This is extremely mild. It is a nerf to AoE, and Windwalkers are the specialists in AoE content, especially in Season 4 when you have the big AoE classes like Survival Hunters and Destruction Warlocks are getting nerfed. So Windwalker, this was expected. I don't think this is not going to impact Windwalkers all that much. It is a nerf, but let's be honest, Windwalker is still going to be extremely strong because the utility they provide, the damage that they provide, they are cooldown dependent and you have to pull around them, but they're going to be really strong in Mythic Plus regardless of this. Now, I know that Blizzard is very scared about nerfing Windwalkers too much in Mythic Plus content, because if you look at the overall DPS that they can provide in something like this, is the overall Sepulcher, but if you look at content or bosses like Skolex, which is basically primarily a single target boss, you can see Windwalkers are doing okay. They're not the best, they're not the worst, but the fact is that You cannot have Windwalker topping single target DPS meters when they provide that much of AoE. So this is perfectly acceptable. I don't think any Windwalker is going to be extremely angry about this. I think Windwalker is still looking to be top tier because the amount of things that they provide in Mythic Plus content, it's very hard to match. 5% physical debuff, AoE stun, CC. There's Ring of Peace. There's just a lot of things that Windwalker does, and they're pretty durable as well. So now let's go to the tank changes, and Protection Paladin has been buffed. There's been some tank changes or some tank buffs to compensate for Season 4 or Season 3 dominance for Blood Decays. Blizzard is not nerfing Blood Decays. They're trying to bring other tanks in line. So Protection Paladin armor increased by 5%, just baseline increase to mitigation. Holy Shield increased to block, chance increased, so 20% was 15. So this is very much warranted. Protection Paladins are not, like, the tank balance is very weird in Season 3. You have a Blood Decay who's kind of head and shoulders to some extent ahead of everyone else if you play a Blood Decay really well. If you play a healer, if you're a healer main and you playing with a Blood Decay, you know that you barely have to heal them. If they have their dancing rune weapon up, if they have enough runing power, you can just let them be and you do your things. You do DPS, you heal other people. Blood Decay is an independent tank that requires no other help, and all the other tanks require a bit more help. So Protection Paladin buffs, very much warranted. They were kind of mid-tier, they weren't close to the top. I think Brewmaster was better than Paladins for the whole Season 3, so this buff is very much warranted. Is it going to bring Prot Paladins to the S tier in terms of tanking, in terms of Mythic Plus content? Most likely not, but we'll have to see. If you enjoy your Prot Paladin, keep playing it. They're extremely fun tank spec to play. Now let's go to Shadow Priest changes, and honestly this is probably one of the biggest buff to some of the classes here, and if you're playing a Shadow Priest, I think you're going to enjoy a lot of this. So Mindseer damage increased by a whopping 30%. Shadow Crash Talent damage increased by 25%, and Searing Nightmare damage increased by 15%. So I know a lot of Shadow Priests, they see changes and they're like, yes, finally we're getting some love. And these are pretty significant changes. The AoE buffs to Shadow Priest, it'll be interesting to see how they're going to perform in Season 4. But I know majority, all of the Shadow Priests that I talk about, I asked their opinion about changes, they hate Searing Nightmare. They don't want this talent. They don't want this talent to be relevant. They don't want this talent to be strong. So even though Shadow Priests are getting a pretty large buff, the fact that Searing Nightmare is going to become meta in a lot of the AoE situations is a huge downside, or at least that's what Shadow Priests tell me. Let me know if you like Searing Nightmare Shadow Priest. Do I think Shadow Priests are going to be meta in Mythic Plus based on these changes? I don't think so, but I think any buff, especially to classes that are underperforming in Season 4, they're extremely warranted. And now let's go to the last two changes. That is going to be Destruction Warlock. We knew this is happening. I'm not even going to go through the changes because these were announced a while ago, but they were just delayed until Season 4, so the exact same thing is happening. The biggest thing here is 4-set bonus, Blasphemy no longer grants Reign of Chaos, which means you have no longer infinite damage. The biggest thing about Destruction Warlock in Season 3 is the fact that they have infinite DPS because your 4-set bonus is going to work with Reign of Chaos, and all of a sudden you're just pumping no matter what pulse you're doing. You're just doing a lot of damage. Your whole damage profile with this nerf is going to change. You're going to be extremely dependent on your Infernal. So if you don't optimize your Infernal, you're still going to be a good PI target. You get PI during Infernal, you press more abilities, you generate more shards, you have more cooldown reduction on Summon Infernal because of your Wilfred's legendary. You are going to be strong. You no longer have infinite damage. The group will have to pull around your cooldowns like most of the other classes out there. Wow. Now the group will have to pull around your cooldown. So this is a very significant nerf to Destruction Warlocks. But the fact that Destruction Warlocks were so, like, I don't think people realize how overpowered Destruction Warlocks were. If you looked at the last couple of weeks of pushing in terms of Season 3, you'll probably notice that a lot of 30 plus 31 keys were done with double Destruction Warlocks. And there probably would have been triple Destruction Warlocks if there was a good way to get Bloodlust and PI at the same time. So bringing a Survival Hunter for Bloodlust and having a Holy Priest for PI was probably the mandatory meta picks. But Destruction Warlocks were so overpowered that this nerf, like, imagine, Destruction Warlock is getting nerfed by 30% and they're still most likely going to be S tier. I cannot believe Blizzard let this class dominate for as long as they did. And then we have some buffs to Protection Warrior. So you saw certain tanks are getting buffed. Protection Paladin was getting buffed and Protection Warrior. So Ignore Pain's absorption is increased by 30%. So just straight up huge buff to Ignore Pain. And the absorption cap is now based on maximum health, was twice the Ignore Pain absorb value. So Protection Warrior is actually one of the least played tanks in Mythic Plus, but that in high-end Mythic Plus 25 plus keys, but that does not mean they're bad. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Protection Warrior. I think this is a pretty big significant buff, and it's going to make them a lot more desirable in these high-end Mythic Plus pushes. And I think this is really warranted. I think this is really great. Protection needed a buff, Protection Paladins needed a buff. But what about Guardian? Like, I think if you're a Guardian Druid right now, you're probably shaking and screaming on the screen right now, because Guardian is actually one of the worst tanks in high-end Mythic Plus content. And the fact that they're losing from Season 3. Guardian Druid is one of the most cooldown dependent tanks out there, with Incarnation being literally the core of your rotation. You can only do huge pulls with Incarnation. You have it reduces the cooldown of Incarnation. You can do bigger pulls. You time the key faster. You don't have in Season 4. You don't have any buffs happening to Guardian Druids. You have Protection Warrior getting buffed, you have Protection Paladin getting buffed, you have Blood Decay being very dominant, and Brewmaster being in a good position. Guardians, I don't want to be over dramatic, but are they just gonna die? No one's gonna get Guardian Druid in high-end Mythic Plus keys. I don't know what Blizzard is thinking. Guardian would absolutely need a buff to compensate for the fact that everyone else is getting buffed and they're already stronger than Guardian Druid. I feel for you as a Guardian Druid main coming into Season 4 if nothing else is going to change. Let's go and look at my predictions for 5-man composition that could be very popular coming into Season 4. Again, anything can change. There's possibly going to be some shifting in the meta and things like that once you get a few items from things like Faded Raids. But Blood Decay is still looking to be like an S tier tank coming into Season 4. The fact, again, I talked about Dancing Rune Weapon uptime. I talked about the fact if you have enough runic power, you're an independent tank, you don't need no healer. So your healer can just focus on DPS, healing others, and you just don't have to worry about this tank. If you play a Blood Decay really well, you're just an insane machine. Plus on top of that, you provide a lot of single target damage. And again, there is Brewmaster who's close to it, but I don't think it's S tier yet. There is going to be Protection Warrior buffs, Protection Paladin buffs. I don't think they're going to bring them close to Blood Decay. Maybe, possibly. We'll have to see. What's happening in Season 4 is that you still have a similar meta, but they're not S++ tier. They're just S tier. And you'll see where I'm coming from with this. So, outside of that, you'll see, again, I do feel that Windwalker Monk is still going to be very strong. They're providing so much utility, you know, 5% physical debuff. It's just overall a strong DPS class. Cooldown dependent, but you can be the king of AoE DPS, and you provide a good or decent single target, especially with single target buffs that happened a couple of weeks ago. So, even though they're getting their AoE nerfed, 5% nerf is not big enough to bring them down, in my opinion. I think they're still going to be very, very strong. So what's happening with Survival Hunter and Destruction Warlock? What's happening with the nerfs? Because the nerfs, are they significant? Are they going to change the meta? I still think Survival Hunter is going to be somewhere in the meta. You have to consider the Survival Hunter is mainly battling a Fire Mage, because these are the two classes that are meta that bring Bloodlust. To some extent are battling Resto Shaman, but I think most classes still want to bring Holy Priest because of PI or Power Infusion. Is Survival Hunter going to be better than Fire Mage? I think so. I think Survival Hunter is still going to have a decent spot. Again, you have to consider that their DPS is still very strong. They provide Bloodlust, and you can improve their survivability through pets and things like that. And I think most of the Survival Hunters out there, they're still relatively happy with the slap on the wrist. I think a lot of people who play Survival Hunter will say that the nerfs to Survival Hunter were very good because they don't destroy the class and they don't destroy the gameplay. Let me know if you think or if you feel a similar way. So, outside of that, do I think Warlocks are still going to be strong? I think Destruction Warlock is still most likely going to be S tier because you still have Demo available. So, Destruction is no longer infinite damage, it's reliant much more on Infernal, which is fine because if you pull around that Infernal cooldown, you're going to do well. You still very much want PI. You still provide a decent, well, your survivability is insane because you have two really strong defensive cooldowns. You're just durable by default based on your stats, based on mastery and things like that. And you have decent utility. You have Hellstones, you have Portals, which I think are actually pretty strong in certain keys. And again, you have Interrupt, you have Purge with your Fell Hunter, Magic Dispel with your Imp. So, situationally very strong, and if Destruction doesn't work, you can go Demo, which Demo has been slept on because it's not Destruction in Season 3. But now, because it's in Season 4, Destruction is getting a pretty hefty nerf, I think there's going to be a lot more Warlocks who are going to try out Demo on certain keys. So, even if Destruction is not going to be S tier, you're a Warlock, you can play multiple specs, and multiple of your specs are doing really well in Mythic Plus. I would not cry if you're a Warlock right now. but it's no longer going to be S plus tier. It might be S or high A tier. So outside of that, what classes are coming in? I think Rogue is definitely making a dent in meta in season 4. So I'm putting Outlaw here. I'm going to put Sub here as well. I don't know which one's going to be the best. You're getting a couple of nice items from Sanctum, especially the daggers from Sylvanas and things like that. You're getting a much bigger impact on Shroud. The fact that Vo is leaving in season 3, you're getting Shrouded affix in season 4, which does not have invisibility. Shroud is going to be a lot more potent, especially if you're trying to optimize a certain key. So I could see Rogue coming into the meta. I could see something like Windwalker, Survival Hunter, Outlaw Rogue making a comeback. It's really going to be dependent on a key, and it's going to be dependent on whether you have those key items on your Rogue, but I think Rogue will make a dent in season 4 meta, and I think if you're playing a Rogue, I think you're going to be relatively happy. Just go and try and get those key items from those faded raids and start pushing Mythic Plus, and just know that, again, the utility you provide, Shroud, is going to be more impactful in season 4 than it was in season 3 because of the seasonal affixes. And outside of that, what other classes? I'm going to go ahead and look at healers. I think Holy Priest, there is no healer changes. I'm going to rant about... I could spend a 2-hour video ranting about the fact that Blizzard has decided not to do not a single change to healer. If you look at the PvP changes, I actually think the PvP changes were more impactful to healer meta than it is for PvE, which is extremely sad because I am a little bit tired about Holy Priest meta. Now, most people will say Holy Priest and things like Restoration Shaman are going to be S tier. Now, there is a big difference between a Holy Priest and Resto Shaman. Don't get me wrong, I've been playing or trying to push Holy Priest and Resto Shaman, and I even made a video about the differences. Holy Priest is clear. In high-end Mythic Plus content, organized content, Holy Priest is clear winner. Not only it provides an insane amount of healing because you have your flash concentration, you have your tier set, you have things like Resonant Words content, you have Trail of Light talents, and all of a sudden you have pretty much unmatched single target healing that also splashes, and on top of that you have PI power infusion, which provides an insane amount of DPS, and you also have a decent amount of DPS, and you feel the difference in really high tyrannical keys. You really feel the difference in terms of the healing output that both of these classes provide. So even though I'm placing Resto Shaman S tier, in high organized groups, Holy Priest is clear winner. Unless, like, the only way Holy Priest would not be S tier or a guaranteed pick in really high organized content is that if you need a decurse, if you need an interrupt really badly, or if PI or Power Infusion would be actually removed from Holy Priest or Priest Arsenal, which is not going to happen. If PI was removed from Holy Priest, it would be much closer. I still think Holy Priest would be really strong, but it would be much closer in terms of what healer is the clear winner in terms of being the best in Season 4. So right now, no healer changes. Extremely sad. I was expecting some Mist Weaver DPS buffs at the very minimum. Blizzard didn't do that, so Holy Priest, S tier, Resto Shaman if you need that decurse, if you need that interrupt, or if you're pugging content. I think Resto Shaman is actually very nice poke healer, especially when it comes to fortified keys because you have Spirit Link and things like that. So if you're, for example, missing Bloodlust, if you think maybe Survival Hunter is going to fall a bit more, I think things like Fire Mages could definitely come in there. I'm not going to put them S tier yet, but if you're doing high tyrannical key, Fire Mage single target damage is very strong. There's still a good PI target and things like that. So I think Fire Mage could come in there, but only if you really need that Bloodlust. So if Survival Hunter stays meta, I think Fire Mage is going to fall. So I think a lot of the Fire Mages out there were hoping the Survival Hunter was going to fall completely and Fire Mage would actually make it into the meta for Season 4. I think there is a lot of hopium for your DPS warrior specs. I think Arms Warrior, Fury Warrior, I think Fury is a bit better, but we'll have to see how the scaling with Jade is, Gavel, with Old Warrior Soul. Old Warrior Soul had a slight nerf that was released a couple of days ago, so we'll see how they're going to scale with that. I think a lot of people, including myself, were sleeping on Frosty Gates for a long time. I think Frosty Gate could also come in there. What you see right now is my pick, my list of what I think is going to be the S tier. I think there is going to be certain classes, certain specs that could fall, could come out of this. And what I feel, or the summary of the whole video, and I don't want this video to be too long, is that you're still going to have a similar, you can see there's still a similar meta. Like, it's extremely disappointing for me to see the exact same meta appearing in Season 4. But they're no longer S++. they're just S tier. So it's easier for something like a Fire Mage or a Frost DK or a Warrior or whatever to come in and take a spot. Maybe a Brewmaster Monk, maybe a Prot Warrior to come in and take that spot. It's easier for them to come in. Now, I am a little bit upset about the lack of healer changes, and I talked about it at the bare minimum. I was kind of expecting Mistweavers to receive at least a DPS buff. They could have, again, increase the DPS of Mistweaver, maybe nerf Ancient Teacher of Monastery so it doesn't scale out of control, or just go completely wild and make Mistweaver OP in Mythic Plus, because let's be honest, they're one of the classes who didn't get to shine in Mythic Plus this season, so I was kind of hoping for some wild changes. But if you're looking to play a healer in Season 4, I made a video for my predictions a couple of weeks ago, and people were worried that it's outdated. With no healer changes, that video, in my opinion, is completely relevant. I'm going to link in the description if you want to check out the healer changes or how the Season 4 might impact them. Go and give it a watch and like if you like, and subscribe and things like that. But if you want to be, like, again, Season 4, if you're looking for raids, if you're looking to top HPS meters, you're going to be playing the same kind of comp. Resto Druid is the absolute king of HPS. This is supposed to be the first ones. This is healing for 95 percentile. Resto Druid HPS is completely wild. They're going to be the top HPS healer in Season 4 as well if nothing changes. If you let, or if you're not overhealing content, if you let Resto Druid HOTS do their work, they're going to be the absolute god tier. Mistweaver Monk is probably the second best HPS healer, which is actually pretty cool because they also provide damage, which is, again, DPS and healing. So the same kind of meta. If you like or care about healing meters, especially in raid situations, there's only one healer to really play. A lot of the other healers provide something else outside of HPS, so don't get me wrong, you can still play Holy Paladin and still be a valued member of your raid team. But if you're looking for a change in meta, both in raids and Mythic Plus, when it comes to healers, nothing's really changing. Resto Druid, the absolute HPS king, and if you're looking for high-end, organized Mythic Plus pushing, Holy Priest. If you're looking for unorganized pugging, probably Resto Shaman. Again, I kind of was hoping for something else. If you enjoyed this video, again, like and subscribe if you do, because it really helps me out, guys. It really, really does. And again, let me know which healer or which class dodged the buff, dodged the nerf. Which class are you maining in Season 4? Which class are you excited for? Is Blizzard doing the right thing by nerfing or buffing certain classes? Let me know, and I'll see you in my next video.